guys, welcome back one more time. US intelligence services have identified a complex supply chain setup by the Houthis in China since the beginning of the attacks in the Red Sea. Now, this bombshell I will discuss more in details in a second, but before I move on, just to remind you, most of my viewers are not subscribed. If you happen to be one of them, consider subscribing. This is what they have found out from the United States Secret Service or intelligence services, whatever you call them, and they came across this particular bombshell, this information, where they are now seeing a link between the Houthis and the Chinese government when it comes to helping each other. Now, for what? Of course, the Houthis, they want sophisticated weapons. These are the ballistic missiles. These are the drones technology, the advanced technology, weapons, guns, machine guns. I mean, you name it. Any weapon that the Houthis would want from China, according to this particular report, China has agreed to supply this to the Houthis. Now, in return, what China will get? Well, what China will get is very, very clear, according to this report again, and that is this ship passing through the Red Sea without any problem, without any attack on them, without getting stopped by the Houthis whatsoever. So China wants free passage for these ships, and Houthis, they want this sophisticated missile system, defense system, air defense system, and all that. Now, the supply chain, it was set up in China, not in Yemen. The Houthis, they have traveled all the way to China to set up this complex supply chain setup, and they are going to be mutually benefiting from this, both China and Houthis. And looks like China, from the very beginning of this conflict, they were interested in helping Houthis. We in fact have noticed how Chinese ships were in the Arabian Peninsula, in Arabian Sea actually. One ship docked in Qatar, what I remember, or actually not Qatar, it was in Kuwait. So China was involved in this war from the very beginning. And now, obviously, United States, they are going to be taking some measures, some action against the Chinese companies, and perhaps against the Chinese government even. Whoever will be dealing with these Houthis, they are going to be getting cut off from the financial system. So Chinese trade companies, businesses will get cut off from using this international financing system, and that's what they are claiming. What is even more dangerous, according to US report, again coming from US report, is that these ships, not only that these ships, but also the countries itself. So for example, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, because of those stockpile of missiles and drones and advanced weaponry that the Houthis have acquired through Chinese collaboration, United States is saying that those missiles, those drones, can be and will be used against these Gulf states. And so they are saying that the problem is not just US or Israel, the problem is also this Gulf state. So let's get together and stop this attack from the Houthis on all of us. I want to actually share with you this particular video from the guy who mentioned about this bombshell and what the United States found out. Let's take a listen.
And now to a story first broadcast here on I-24 News. The link between Chinese companies and the Houthis has been exposed. Americans have identified a mechanism through which the Houthis have bought weapons components from Chinese companies. The US has also approached the Chinese with a demand to stop such activity. Senior correspondent Guy Azrael is the man breaking the story. And Guy, we keep on hearing about the Iranian-backed support for the Houthis. Talk to us about the Chinese link here. What are you learning?
Right. So we've been speaking about the threat of the Houthis for over a year now. They basically started their campaign against Israeli vessels and also with missiles against Israel shortly after that Hamas attack, joining other arenas. And this has been a threat, as you said, not only on Israel, but also on other vessels, international vessels in the Red Sea.
Okay, so the first thing I just want to clarify, this guy, his name is Israel, Guy Israel. He is a Zionist himself. Everything that he is saying here, we do not have to believe him until China will come out and acknowledge such deals with the Houthis. We're going to say that we do not know. We know half of the truth maybe, but the other half we will have to wait and see what China will say about this. And again, coming from a guy who is a reporter for the I-24 News, he's a Zionist himself, and talking about how Houthis are a big headache, not just for Israel and U.S., but also for the whole world, is something we have to take with a grain of salt, because again, we do not trust any of the Zionists or pro-Israelists.
We reported this evening that much of the weaponry used by the Houthis was obtained using components bought from Chinese companies. Now, these were private companies, but this was all under the watchful eyes of the Chinese regime, because we know that since September, the U.S. has made contact with the Chinese authorities about that activity, that terrorist activity using these components bought in China. And the indications that the Americans received were that the Chinese did nothing to change the situation. Furthermore, we know that Houthi officials traveled to China, where they were likely to have met with Chinese officials. So the Chinese were not deterred by that complaint by the U.S. and continued their operation. Furthermore,
well, number one, why China would have to pay heed to what the U.S. has to say about the Houthis? I mean, this is not Chinese problem. This Houthi problem was created mainly because of Israel. Why China will have to pay the price? Because when their ships will pass through the Red Sea, they will be coming under attack if they don't make a deal with the Houthis. And this is, to me, makes sense that they made a deal with Houthis. Why would everybody pitch in to save Israel, their interest? Why? I mean, this is ridiculous. And on the other hand, you have United States helping Taiwan with millions and billions of dollars in weapons and aid, angering China. Why would China have to cozy up to U.S. for this? Well, you know what? U.S. is so narcissist at the moment. They believe that they must be put on a pedestal all the time, and that no country should challenge whatever it requires or it demands from them. And so U.S. said to China, hey, I want you to stop dealing with Houthis. You have to listen to me, or else I'm going to be sanctioning you and your economy will be gone. So I think that the world is slowly but surely waking up to this reality that U.S., Israel, they're bullies. And once they have their own currencies, the BRICS nation, this should be gone. The U.S. dollar hegemony is creating all this evil throughout the world. When we see U.S. is bullying other nations as to how to behave, how to act.
Or other threats beyond those to the vessels and the missiles and drones sent to Israel. We understand from that intelligence information that the Houthis are using components, Chinese components, to build cruise missiles that the Americans say could threaten other capitals in the region like Riyadh and Abu Dhabi, and that is a major warning for these Sunni countries in the Gulf area. So that danger is not just to Israel, not just to these boats, but to the regional stability in general, and that is a major concern. Now the U.S., perhaps Israel, perhaps other countries will have to find out how to stop this campaign.
Okay, so first of all, Houthis are not enemy to Saudi Arabia or to any country. In fact, they now have a good relationship. The only time they became an enemy of the Saudis was when U.S. said attack them, launch a campaign against the Houthis, and Saudi abide by that. UAE, those two nations, they made a foolish decision to go after the Houthis, who are just their next door neighbor. Why would you try to attack your neighbor? Doesn't make any sense. But when U.S. gave weapon to Saudi Arabia and told them get rid of the Houthis because they're linked with Iran, Saudi acted. And then what happened? The oil refineries or the oil fields were under attack. Now there is no attack, not a single drone coming into Saudi Arabia from the Houthis. Houthis doesn't have any problem with Saudi Arabia anymore all of a sudden. So now they're going back to the same script, United States and Israel. Oh, these Houthis are your enemies. You have to stop these Houthis. You have to stop China, their help to the Houthis. Using the same excuse to wage war against the Houthis by Saudi Arabia and UAE, and US is encouraging that kind of action and instability in the region, quite frankly. This is something unbelievable from United States. Why would you be, first of all, try to get rid of the Houthis? The US wants to get rid of the Houthis because of Israel, for a foreign nation. They want to protect Israel at any cost.
The Houthis have been targeting global shipping during that time. What about Chinese vessels?
Well, this is what the Americans believe is part of that deal. Basically, the Chinese turning a blind eye, for the very least, to this system, while the Houthis spare their boats in the Red Sea. That is the deal that the American intelligence is speaking about. Spare our boats and we'll enable you to buy all these weaponry, all these components that you need for your weapon industry. The trouble is that so many other countries and so many innocents, of course, are suffering from the hands of these terrorists. We know here in Israel, so many Israelis
This guy, he doesn't even call them Houthis, he calls them terrorists. So you know how biased he is. Again, as I said, he's just an Israeli agent. Now, take a look at this report here. Houthis tell China, Russia, their ships won't be targeted in Red Sea. Countries broker deal with Yemen. One person asked me, how does Houthi have the air-to-air missile? Well, because the Houthis, they don't have an air force. I think that is changing. I think Russia and China, both of them will be helping Houthis getting those fighter jets up in the air very, very soon. And maybe they're already training. And this is why I mentioned a report where they said Russia is already helping Houthis with that kind of air-to-air missile system. And of course, on top of all of this, you have also Iran into this play. Let's read a little bit here. Houthis have assured China and Russia that their ships sailing in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden will not be attacked, as reported by Bloomberg. In exchange, China and Russia have pledged political support to the Houthis in forums like the UN Security Council. This support could manifest in the form of blocking additional resolutions against the Houthis at the UNSC. It is not just a political support now. Houthis want more than that. Houthis mean business. They don't care about United Nations, the piece of garbage in the biggest piece of garbage in human history. They want a weapon. They don't want China, Russia to go to UN and shield for the Houthis. They want, real deal. They want those weapons to be supplied to them so that they can use it against Israel. And this is exactly what is happening at the moment. And this is a bombshell, as I said in the beginning of this video. Thank you guys for joining.